Hey everybody, Scott Jansen here. In this very strange video, I want to talk about advanced conversational hypnosis testing and what we call, as a part of that testing, the green alien testing. Now, if you've done any hypnotherapy course, you've done an NLP course, you've done a coaching course, you should at this stage understand how vital it is to test your client based on the results they got from that session. Now, these could be new insights, it's the breakthroughs, it's the aha moment. We want to test these things to make sure they've got resilience before your client goes out into the real world. What most people miss is what we call ridiculous testing or green alien testing, is something we teach all of our ACH students, and why this can be the absolute pinnacle to making sure your clients never have to see you again for another session. It makes sure the aha moments and the insights they got stick for life and change their life over and over again as the processing completes. So let's get into this strange video. Like I said, green alien testing, how to do it, when to do it, what it's all about, and why you want to be adding this to every client from this step forward. So let's look at advanced conversational hypnosis testing, which is ACH. And just to remind everybody, and maybe you're not familiar with it, but to remind the people that are, what it's all about. So on completion, guys, of your sessions, now when I say session, I'm talking about mini sessions. We know with ACH that although the quote unquote session might go for 45 minutes to an hour, we're doing multiple mini sessions. There might be upwards of 15 mini sessions in that whole hour. Thus, we're not having to get our clients to return over and over. We do those little mini sessions all in one. So on completion of your session or mini sessions, testing is required, no matter what the niche is, guys, to add resilience to the newfound insights and breakthroughs. Okay, it's required to add resilience. We're testing these things to make sure they stick. You must complete something called emotional testing, scenario testing, and ridiculous testing or green alien testing. If not, your client's life will test them and often break the session. If you've ever had a session, and this is more traditional where you finish the script or you finish the technique, and then quote unquote your client's supposed to be healed. It's like magic, like you've waved a magic wand and they're going to go into the everything's going to be fine. Absolutely not. If you don't test out possible scenarios, possible emotions, or what we call green alien testing, any slight bad thing in their life, any rocky road, any sort of hindrance they come across, catches up with this person, it can tend to break the session. Why? Because your client has no resilience. They do not have anything that would help them through what could be just a bad day, and all of a sudden they become a smoker again. We have to give them some sort of tool, quote unquote, so life doesn't sort of bite them in the ass and break everything down. So if not, your client's life will test them and often break the session. And the worst thing is you're not there to fix it. Hence why if your clients have to keep coming back to see you over and over again for the same thing. Now, this is not even talking about fixing the symptom and the root cause. What I'm talking about is maybe you haven't tested hard enough. And again, you've got to learn how to do this. We teach all our ACA students is you've got to test hard enough to make sure nothing breaks. Even the worst day possible they've ever had, they never go back to the cigarettes or never go back to feeling anxiety. Your goal should be to break the session before they leave so you can fix it. The alternative is like, I always play this sort of tongue-in-cheek idea that, you finish with your client, you finish the script and the technique, and you slowly push them out of your office. You don't want them to touch the door. You don't want them to bump into the walls like fine china. You don't want it to break. All that's going to happen is your client leaves. Maybe they drive home, someone cuts them off, and bang, they start smoking again because there's no resilience to the breakthrough. Okay? Your goal should be to break the good work that you've done. Why? Because they're sitting in front of you and you can fix it then and there. There's no point getting them back for another session. Just finish it there. Okay. So that's us up to date with conversational hypnosis testing. Now let's look at the emotional testing scenario and green alien testing. So emotional testing, you want to do this right at the end, guys. You want to test the emotional triggers. So you should know what the emotional triggers are because they've told you during the session. They've also told you on the strategy call. You just want to make a mental note of these things. You want to test these things. Start off with soft testing and move into very hard testing. Give them everything you've got to try and break that session. Next is scenario testing. Let me give you an example. Like smoking has a lot of scenario testing. My client said I'll smoke at work if I'm stressed out, which is a bit emotional as well. I smoke at the pub with my friends. I smoked when I was drinking beer at the pub again. All of those are scenario testing. So you want to test out these scenarios or places where your client have been triggered, okay? Because let's say they leave the session, you haven't done the testing, they go to the pub. What are they going to do? They're probably going to start smoking again because you haven't tested it out. You've got to give them some sort of resource to fall back on. So if someone at the pub says, hey, here's a cigarette, they turn around and say, no, I'm not a smoker anymore. It's all been fixed, just as an example. So pretty straightforward, emotional testing, scenario testing. What's this ridiculous green alien testing? Well, this is my favorite. Green alien testing. I did this with all of my clients, guys. I made this up when I was seeing all my lawyers, and it worked an absolute treat. And the feedback we get from all the ACH students is just crazy, funny, and just awesome because I know this is what helps the clients have lifelong change. So, green alien testing. You want to use a really ridiculous idea, guys, to let the unconscious mind reach far into the future, the what ifs, or anything where even the smallest trigger will break your client. So let me give you an example. So at the end, we do this session. Now we're not including the processing because we know, smoking is the is not the root cause. We know that's a symptom, but I always do some sort of testing. You want to do the testing on the symptom, okay? Because that's why they're there, and it sort of ties it all together in a neat bow. So I'll say to my clients, I've done the emotional testing, done the scenario. My clients are literally saying, Scott, stop asking me questions. I don't want to smoke anymore. It's disgusting. My life's going to be awesome. They're getting a little bit frustrated with me, which is cool. I'll say, look, Joe, just before you go, what if you told me on the strategy call that you would go camping once every 5 years? And it was a habit of you and your wife when you went camping just to have a cigarette together, just to share the moment and reminisce. What if that happens? My client goes, well, if I go camping, I'll do this, this, and this instead. Great. Now they passed that testing. And you can see I've used a 5-year, once every while, sort of ridiculous idea to test that. I've just thrown that in his mind. Now, Joe might turn around and say, well, God, I haven't thought of that. And bang, the session will probably break. I can fix it. I do one last reach, absolute ridiculous. I say, Joe, what if while camping, it's a bit silly to say, aliens come down, abduct you and your wife, and instead of being probed, which is obviously we don't want that to happen, they say you just got to have one puff of a cigarette and we'll let you go. Now, it's stupid. Anyone in their right mind would have that cigarette. And it's just a random scenario. But what I'm informing Joe to do, whether it breaks or not, he says yay or nay, I'm letting his unconscious mind start to reach really, really far into any single ridiculous possibility. Anything at all that it can think of. The unconscious mind moves very, very quick. And the great thing about it, it doesn't just finish it there. As part of the processing, because I've informed the unconscious mind, hey, don't just stick to the normal things you do each day. Look at every single possibility where you might want to smoke and start to collapse those as well. Start to untie those knots while you're processing. So the alien thing is just a random idea. It would never happen. But I'm letting the unconscious mind just reach as far as possible into any what if, into anything, the smallest thing, as ridiculous and uncommon as it could be, attach the new resource to that. Okay. And this is what sets your clients. It's not really future pacing, but in some sort of way it is, but it's a lot harsher. And as far as testing, you're letting the unconscious mind start to do this and start to collapse any possibility. Because I don't want Joe, if he does go camping, to get abducted by aliens. And it does happen. It's a silly scenario. It would never happen. But what if? What if Joe is driving on the highway, his car breaks down, a car runs into the back of his car breaks down, he gets injured, he breaks his leg or something like that, a crow flies over his car, defecates on his car, it starts to rain, then a lightning bolt hits him, and the only thing you can think of, stupid as it is, only thing you can think of is a cigarette. Will he pass that? That's what I'm looking for, guys. So we use the green alien because it's just ridiculous. And a lot of my clients used to laugh at it, but I could see the cogs in their mind starting to work. That's the unconscious mind in action. If not, the emotional testing is good. The scenario testing is good. That ridiculous, like I keep saying, lets the unconscious mind just stretch as far as it can and find any single thing that may break the session. And I don't want that to happen. And like I said, as they're processing, the unconscious mind will find all those things. I don't have to go through them one by one. So letting your client just think about this just for even 30 seconds and then come up with an answer. If they say, well, I would smoke then, I'm going to fix that. I'm going to ask, well, what made you think that? How is that the case? Whatever it is, I'll actually go into the hypnotic interview then, because the alien thing is just a metaphor. I need to find out what exactly, or does this person know exactly when they would smoke? I need to fix that because that's just another knot. It's a great way to find those really hidden knots. Additionally to that, as you're doing all this, this also keeps the client in your session for further processing and lock in that processing stage. Okay. So I know if I set up the right processing chat, my client leaves, that's where all the good therapy is done. If you've done ACH, Paul, we say that a lot. You don't do the session and the therapy so much in the session. It happens when they're processing, when they're thinking, when they're sleeping, when they're getting on with their life. That's when all the magical things happen. That's when those aha moments pop up. So if I can keep them in the session, the whole time I'm starting any sort of testing, they're actually processing in the background. I'm just keeping them there as long as I can so they can process in front of me, just in case something pops up and they say, oh, hang on, Scott, I've just thought of this. And bang, they give it to me. And that would have untied the great session that we've done. I need to fix that then and there. So I'm just trying to hold them in the session as long as possible before I let them go. All right, guys. So hopefully that helps. If you haven't done any testing, I highly recommend you learn how to do it. You need to learn emotional testing, scenario testing, and the ridiculous testing is one of my favorite. It works so, so well. You need to learn how to do this, and that's on top of the processing chat stuff. And again, we teach all this in the ACH training. But if you are using common testing, scenario and emotional, chuck in the green alien testing or come up with your own ridiculous scenario. Give it to your client, let them process in front of you and see what happens. It works an absolute treat. All right, guys, hopefully that was helpful. That was green alien testing. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.